And then the world changed. Our sky fell on top of our heads. The war, says Andreas. What people don't understand is how quickly everything can fall apart. For years or generations even, everything can be normal. You go to work, you pick up groceries on the way home, you eat on your balcony with your parents, you go to sleep in a warm room on a soft bed. Maybe there are some political changes, a leader who promises a lot, some skirmishes in a town far away. The newspaper has statements from the government saying it's just a temporary problem and telling you to stay calm, so you do. There are rumours of tanks on the border of your region, but you still go to school and you still do your homework and play soccer with your friends. And then, one day, you see helicopters in the sky. A man returns to your neighbourhood. A man who used to be a popular boy in your school. He returns from another town and tells you of the dead bodies on the side of the road. He wears a pistol now on his belt. You look into his eyes only a few years older than your own eyes, and you see only blackness. And then you realize that nothing will ever be the same again. Silence in the attic. Nobody moves a muscle. Our town was besieged on all sides for almost 1 year. We could not leave. My father had already gone off to fight, and I was left with my sister and my mother. On the hills outside the suburbs, they positioned their artillery and their snipers. I used to play on those hills. They were our hills and our woods. My father and my uncle would hunt there, and now there were men who hated us, and they were hiding in trees with sniper rifles and mortars. I left school. I had to. My girlfriend and I married one night. A mechanic married us, me and my high school sweetheart. My sister carried on studying. The school was at the end of our street, a 5-minute walk, but it took her an hour because she had to pass through burnt out buildings and sneak back behind structures to avoid snipers. They would kill anyone they saw. Maybe they saw us as some kind of enemy, or maybe they were using our heads and our chests as target practice. He takes another sip of his drink. You don't think you will ever get used to seeing grandmothers dead in the street, but eventually you do. The bread that they may have exchanged for some silver jewelry or American dollars they'd hidden away, long since scavenged by hungry children, willing to test the sniper, willing to get close to the dead old lady their mother once knew. He takes a break for a moment and everybody in the room is transfixed. There are no questions. There is no doubting this man. The siege felt like it lasted a lifetime. To get water, we'd have to walk a great distance to a spring and queue with a container. It was very dangerous. So we'd harvest rainwater from the building roof. We boiled it on a small stove that my mother got in exchange for her wedding ring. After a while, things felt almost normal. No glass in the windows because of the mortar fire. No food in the house. No heat. No medicines. Sometimes there would be food dropped by foreign planes, but it'd be taken by the strongest or the richest. Women would have to offer themselves up to men in order to feed their own children. It was a slow nightmare, one you do not wake up from. I consider myself to be a lucky man, living here now in this country, a survivor, but I wear my scars on the inside of my skin. The man scratches his head through his balaclava. I can see his arm is tattooed all the way to his wrist. Linda Larsen frowns and chews her lip. The speed of change is not something you can prepare yourself for. To have comfort and justice and the law, and then go from that to chaos in days, is not something you can ready yourself for. It just is not. 1 week you're going to the supermarket to buy your potatoes and your cod, And the next week people are hungry, looting, fighting over the last tin of food. No staff in the buildings, fires raging, no police, the sound of gunfire growing ever closer. Men do things they didn't think they would ever have to do. They protect, they make awful decisions. Some form communities and gangs quickly. Gangs to protect their building, or the other kind. Gangs to go out looting and raping. Those men, and they might not be the same men as you imagine in your heads, they relish the chaos. They are angry before the world goes to hell, and then they reap their revenge. They thrive in the anarchy, and they do much harm to the people all around them. He looks at Nicholas in his camouflage clothes. We were not prepared like you people are. We did not have fancy army jackets or buckets of grains. We were just normal people getting by. But one thing I didn't expect in the first weeks was that the big houses, the people with security, with dogs, with gates, they got attacked before everybody else did. He pauses here. Ruby and Nicholas look uncomfortable. The people in burnt-out shacks and flats could hide in plain sight, hungry and dirty. But the people with defenses showed the world that they had something worth protecting. Did they defend themselves? Asked T-Bone. The man swallows. They tried. They were armed. But it is not possible to fend off a large gang. You think you can do it, but you cannot. The gangs broke in eventually. They fought their way inside to take what they wanted. After 6 months, all of those big houses had been ransacked. The people who survived had taped up boots and filthy skin. They had a gun on their person at all times. I kept mine by my pillow, not even underneath it. You think if you have a car, a generator, a big gun, you will be okay. But those things don't help you when the sky falls on your head. The car has no fuel, and if it does, it is noisy and will draw attention to you. Someone will take it from you and kill your family. A generator has no fuel, but if it does, it is noisy. There is smoke. People see you, and they take it, and they kill your family. The only way to survive is to keep a low profile and stay smart. You must live in the shadows. The man crosses his leg the other way. Cigarettes were useful. They became like gold, like currency. Some alcohol was useful, and ammunition, of course. Antibiotics were very important. Almost everything else is a luxury. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just telling you my truth. Imagine walking into Ika-Maxi and finding dead bodies in the bakery aisle. Blood on the walls. No police sirens, nothing. You cannot imagine it, but it can happen. A few missed meals. The police have to stay home to protect their own children, and bad men take advantage. It happens in a few days. You said the siege ended after a year, says Therese. What happened afterwards? The man takes a deep breath. By then I was old enough to fight, so I went and fought for my people. I left my mother and I went to fight. Your sister? She stayed with my mother. They were both very strong. And you said you married your childhood sweetheart, Alexia, he says, smiling. She was 5 months pregnant with our child. She was a very special person, a very kind person. Walking back from collecting firewood on the other side of town, after most of the trees had already been taken down, passing by a narrow street, the sniper killed her. The sniper killed her and our baby. The mood in the attic changes. Linda and Therese both move in their chairs, and then Nicholas starts to cough into his elbow. The silence is disturbing. But what is more disturbing is that the man is so featureless in his balaclava. He delivered the news of his partner's death with an even tone, and now we cannot clearly see his eyes or his mouth, his humanity. We cannot draw upon those features for signs of how to react, how to go on. T-Bone says in a muted voice, Did you get your revenge somehow? The man turns to face the shelves of food cans and buckets of wheat. Then he turns back. Not so simple, he says. Complicated. I would have hunted them down, says Nicholas, patting the arm of Ruby. I would have ended him. The man removes a stick of gum from his pocket, and then he unwraps it. He looks at it. He places it on his tongue, showing us all his missing front tooth, and then he chews. You do not know of what you speak, he says. You do not know what you are talking about. I know. No. You think you know, says the man. You all think you know how it could be, but none of you do know. And that is not a criticism, far from it. If anything, it is a compliment. You have never lived as animals, as savages, done bad things, so you don't know. I'm glad you don't know. You've done bad things, asked T-Bone. What did you do? We all did terrible things to survive, he says. You did the things or you died. We were 7 in my group. Many days were quiet. It is a boring time, a war. Keeping watch and sleeping and cooking. We did all the bad things. There were no good men in that situation. We were all bad in our own ways. He looks around the group. You have a bad person amongst you here as well. The woman by the river, Tuva. What was her name? I'm slightly taken aback, but I reply, Elsa Nieberg. Now wait a minute, says T-Bone. Elsie was one of us, a friend. You have been misinformed, says Therese, looking at me. We were just here. We're just keen to find Elsa's killer as everybody else is. We want justice for her. The man waits and he says, maybe. And then he chews and watches us. What is this? Says Nicholas. Who is this guy? Take off your mask. Let's see your face. How long will this food last you? Asks the man. A year, maybe 18 months if we ration, says T-Bone. Plus we keep food on the hoof, best way. Meat birds and egg layers, rabbits. Andreas keeps them up with his dogs. Then we've got bees and of course all the wild game we need. Fish in the ponds and in the river. And how will you defend yourselves when the bad men come to take away your food and your women? Maybe we are the bad men, says Andreas. No, says the man. You are not.